Howdy, and welcome back to You've Got People Problems, the podcast where we tackle the leadership challenges that no one wants to talk about, but every business faces. I'm your host, Melissa Ortiz with Activate Human Capital Group, and this is episode 34. Today we're talking about how leaders make the decision between hiring full-time or part-time or fractional talent with my guest, Michelle Scribner, CEO at Sum of All Numbers. Michelle has built her career in the accounting space, and she brings a wealth of experience in helping businesses weigh the true costs and benefits of different staffing models. She shares her insights on when outsourcing makes sense, the hidden risks leaders overlook, and how shifting to the right model can reduce headaches while keeping operations running smoothly. From fractional IT to outsourced bookkeeping, Michelle highlights the practical realities leaders really need to consider. If you've ever wondered whether the role you're filling really needs to be a permanent hire, or if another model could serve your business better, this episode will help you think differently about building your team. Let's get to it. Howdy, y'all, and welcome to You've Got People Problems. I am joined today by Michelle Scribner, who is a client, a friend, an amazing practitioner, and we're going to be talking about I have so many people ask often, do I really need to hire a person for this role? And heaven help you if you're in California like we are, because most businesses are asking themselves this question. And so we thought we'd have a bit of a debate about fractional versus part-time versus finding an outsourced partner. And we're going to do it primarily in their space of the accounting world, but my husband's owned a fractional IT company for a while. There are so many different directions we can go with this. So I think it really gets to the heart of sometimes it's not what are the problems, but if we need that headache at all. So I'm really excited to jump into this discussion with you, Michelle. Tell us a little bit about Sum of All Numbers.
We started in 2007 and did primarily bookkeeping services. In 2017, we realized that AI was coming. So, that was 8 years ago, and we saw it there and said, we've got a lot of knowledge that we've got. It's time to start helping our clients, not just doing the transactional work for them, paying their bills and getting financial statements and such. So we entered into the advisory role, mainly with cash flow management was our major thing. And then what would happen is that we would got into the place where it was, hey, we've got their cash flow going, but there was more that was needed from these clients, and thought, all right, if it has to do with numbers, then we're really in a place to help with the number part of it. And then the best part with working with you, Melissa, is that there's so much that goes with personality and behavior that ties right back into the numbers. And so I'm going to say that that's kind of a little way that we've differentiated ourselves from other bookkeeping and accounting and advisory services is like, there's a lot that has to do with, all right, I'm going to give you this counsel and advice, but this is not the same that I give to someone else because blah, 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 blah. And it's so amazing to see owners of businesses, small businesses say, holy cow, you are right. You are right. I can see how this is going to cause a problem for me or my business. So it's very lonely at the top in running a business. And sometimes, you get very guarded with your numbers and you just need someone to talk through it and to say, just tell me how it is. And so we've kind of filled that role of being a trusted advisor for business owners.
And I think that's something I've seen that so few partners do is you really get to the heart of who is the human that I'm interacting with. Looking at their behavioral profile, thinking about your communication is in terms of what will really land. What do they want to know when they're asking me this? Because if you have someone who's very detailed and analytical, they're asking one question, it might mean something totally different than someone who wants the top line bullet points. And I so admire that you're meeting them where they are in such a vulnerable place, especially because so many of these business owners came up because they were great at the business, not because they were great at the numbers.
Absolutely. And they grow to a place where it's like, okay, it was fine when it was this small amount, which is where we're going to go into for the rest of our conversation here. But at the beginning, it was fine. And then it gets a little bit more complex and you're spread so thin as a business owner. And so really that kind of having that person to be able to bounce things off of, and I really look at it as a trusted advisor that is there. I'm going to say for most people who are in the bookkeeping and CPA realm, we are very much wired, most people are very much wired to be very detail oriented, very factual knowledge and stuff. And then you get into the behavior. Well, that's squishy. It's really squishy. And so when I am coaching my team and training my team, that I'll say, hey, let's pull up this balance sheet. I'm going to tell you one thing now. You tell me what this person is like. And I challenge them on is like, it's right there. The numbers are telling you a story, and there's a person behind this story, especially in entrepreneurial businesses. That's our field, is the entrepreneurial business. So let's really look at this. And the interesting part, we used to have a whole portion of our business that helped nonprofit organizations, but nonprofits operate very differently in a behavior space. And we realized that where we were really helping clients, it didn't relate to a nonprofit. You know, they still might have cash flow problems and such, but that's a very different behavior thing. And so we've continued to maintain and help our nonprofit, but that's not the area of business that we've expanded, or because we saw that behavioral base was so different with that, and we didn't want to just be transactional bookkeepers. So yeah, that area we didn't expand in. So
Great. Well, if you are listening because you know Michelle and you don't know me, my name is Melissa Ortiz, and my organization is Activate Human Capital Group. And my partnership with clients is really helping them understand who are the humans we have on board, how do we support, nurture, and encourage and engage them so that they can do their best work. We want to make sure they're in the right seats so they're thriving both at work and at home. It turns out they actually do better work at work when they are well suited for their roles. And so it doesn't do them any good or us any good as employers if we've got the wrong butts in the wrong seats. So helping diagnose what's going on there, making sure they're engaged, it's all kind of the people data space. It's merging the hard numbers with the squishy stuff that's really my team's forte. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation. So many people, Michelle, bring up I've been trying to get employees who aren't in California,
yeah.
because it is such a challenging space. But also all over the place, people are looking to offshore. They're looking to go AI. And some places that makes sense, and other places it really doesn't yet.
Mhm.
A lot of places it really doesn't yet. And so
Sure.
thinking about the caliber of people, how much does time zone matter to us? The responsiveness we're looking for to clients. There's so much involved here. So let's talk through, if I'm an organization and I've been growing, I'm an entrepreneurial business. I've been growing for a while. I was doing my own books, and then my sister-in-law, say, took over the books because it was someone I trusted,
Sure.
and she had a little bit of extra time. She's a teacher, and she, has some financial acumen, and so this is, I've kind of gone down. I take it off my own plate and make it a part-time thing. We're reconciling our accounts, but there comes a point where there needs to be more. Talk to me about some of the transition points that organizations make from I do it to someone else does it to really demands a person to this decision. Do I put a person or a partner in that space? Walk through that a little bit, because I think it happens in a lot of different spaces of our business where we can outsource.
Yes. So I'm going to say that when you look at being an entrepreneurial business person, and I honestly heard at one time, is like our job is to create jobs for other people. Like it's not to just start our own business and say we have a business, but it really is, what is our purpose here? Is like, hey, I'm going to create a business and I'm going to create jobs for people to have. Well, when we begin, there's not a lot of revenue. I mean, for most entrepreneurial businesses, for those of you that start off strong, I'm really impressed with you. But most of us, it doesn't. It starts off slow. And so what do? We answer our own phones. We scrub our own toilets. We take out our own trash. We do our own marketing. We do our own bookkeeping. We do our own sales. We fill out our own contracts, everything. And it's then as the revenue comes in, it's like, okay, I need to start delegating, mainly because there is money to be able to to afford it. And also that because we're just spread too thin, that we're like, in the beginning, we have our whole heart and soul into it. It doesn't matter to us that we're working 10 hours a day because we just love it and we want to see something happen. So that usually happens around 250,000 in our gross revenue, just that not gross revenue, but I'm going to call it gross profit. So if you have a product, not necessarily a service, but a product, is like there's 250,000 left for my overhead and stuff. At that point, then it's like, what do we first start trying to delegate? Well, I'm going to say you better start delegating the stuff you hate to do. And
Yes.
why did you say your books? Are you a detail person, Melissa?
I just like the big picture.
I know. And so you know what? And when I'm talking with a client and saying, I'm like, all right, what do you not like to do? Well, we can actually, by looking at certain behavior reports, we can actually tell them, can't we? I know you
Yes.
really don't like that, right? And so, and most of the time it's the stuff that you just don't like that it's time to start doing that. Well,
Put it off. We procrastinate. We do it last thing
yeah.
because,
Or it's good enough. It's
yeah,
good enough. All right. So you look at this, and obviously I am in the financial space. And so I'm like, your financials, they're important. Well, why are they really important? Because you have to file taxes. And then beyond that, it's like, well, why are they important? Well, if they're kept up well and they're organized in a way that means something to you as the business owner, not just the out of the can thing that is created by the CPA or QuickBooks Online or whatever, but really structured so it means something to you. Now they become a tool. And it's a historical tool for you to see what happened here. And the numbers tell a story. I mean, numbers are, we see it all the time as far as somebody will say, well, you doctored it. Well, it's not doctoring, it's the way you've organized. At one point, you have 100% come in, and hopefully you don't have more than 100% go out, but you just can see where it all is. But there's a difference between out of the box, it's called dues and subscriptions. Well, what's a dues and subscriptions, Melissa? What is it? I've told my team I don't want to ever see that again because it used to be that dues and subscriptions was the National Geographic magazine that you had in your lobby. That was a subscription. Well, what is now? Is your telephone a subscription? Well, yeah, kind of. Is your software
everything is a dues
subscription?
and
Yeah.
subscription.
Is your
Every business
membership?
out there wants to be on this subscription model. It's crazy
Yeah.
maker.
So all of a sudden, this thing of dues and subscription, which comes out of every single chart of accounts that exists out there, including QuickBooks, we made a decision. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that anymore. It means nothing. So we changed it to memberships, which are your Chamber of Commerce and your American Express membership and your professional organizations that you are a member of, that you choose to be a part of in order to take your business further or whatever else. And then we have software subscriptions. Well, that's just the software that you're using. And in some cases, depending upon the kind of company you are, it's like we call it job-based software, which means QuickBooks for those of us that in the account. But then you've got back office. But you know what? You get to name it whatever you want to name it. And for me, when you start naming a simple rename, now it means something to when you're looking at it, you're like, why did I go from $300 in my software subscriptions to 1,500? Whoa, 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 what happened here? Oh, that free trial that I forgot to cancel or the annual subscription that I took advantage of. Well, with 300 to 1,500 for most small businesses, it's hard to absorb $1,200 that just hits. And so now you can start making strategic decisions based upon that. And it is supposed to be customizable. So that piece right there is if you've not done that, make that change so that you're like, all right, now it means something to me. So if you delegate, sometimes it's someone gave you the permission to do it and someone gave you their expertise in that field to be like, oh my goodness, okay, same thing with marketing, right? As soon as you start doing marketing or IT, wait a minute, let's structure this a little bit different so you can use it as a strategy for your business. And
And
then,
then
yeah, go ahead.
it's interesting. I think about that and I think, oh yeah, those are really good ideas. And then if it's the thing I don't like to do, guess what? I feel like I should, but I don't. And so then I know I'm getting behind, and there's this shame that starts to pile
Yeah,
up.
it
And if you
is.
go back to the behavior and the squishy stuff, it's like, I know I can do better. I don't really want to. I don't have the time and patience. And now it feels really daunting because you're right, I'm doing it wrong. And I think one of the partner pieces that's so valuable in the fractional space, rather than having maybe just a part-time, or heaven forbid we really take on a full-time person with benefits and all that, which sometimes is absolutely warranted depending on what size
Yes.
we're at.
Yes.
But this this shame around, well, it's really messy, I should get it cleaned up before I hand it off to someone else. And then I see owners kind of procrastinate because it's the last thing on their list to start with, and now it's gotten a bigger task that I'm supposed to do better with. And meanwhile, if I just apologize to the person I'm bringing on and say, this is a mess, I need your help cleaning up. And I know we're going to have to reconfigure our chart of accounts. And I don't know how far back we should do that. Is it just this year? Should I go back 5 years? I don't know, but it feels scary. And I think
Right.
that's one thing that maybe stops people from bringing someone in from the outside, because it feels embarrassing.
It is. And I think that is something for as business owners, we often are expected to know everything about every part of the business. And when we can come in with a little bit of humility of, I do this part really, really great, but this part I don't, then you can go find those people or that partnership with someone to say, okay, I know they do that well. I think for when I look at myself as a business owner, my tenacity is like, and to own it and just say, yep, I am always that. I do 90% great. It's that last 10%. And as soon as I, first of all, acknowledged it, then I went and found the person who that's where they shine. And guess what? We just rock it. So I think that's another piece too. It takes away the shame part of it is who said that you were supposed to be great at all of it? Except, when it's money, then it's like there is this assumption of, well, you should be good at it if you're going to be your own business owner. But guess what? No, do you know that most business owners are visionaries? They're like amazing. They go with their gut, they don't go with the evidence and all these other things. And that's why we've got this amazing entrepreneurial environment in America. So the shame part could be challenge it and just say, hey, I know what I'm really good at, and I can find someone that they're really good at that other piece. And together, man, we are just going to hit it out of the park.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really freeing thing.
It
And
is.
sometimes it's hard to let go of. But I think an apology goes a long way. When I'm starting a new partnership and say, some of this isn't pretty and I'm really sorry, and I'll do what you tell me, or I'll let you do what you think we need to do, but please lower your expectations.
Sure. No, that's a good piece. That's a really good part of that too. I think you're right too, to
And in
just,
some ways that helps the partnership because there's more space to get it right. Whether instead, if I had it all locked down and say, okay, this is exactly how it should be, where does that give the opportunity? Maybe that's a better argument for a part-time person. If I was really good at it and I
yes.
just don't have the time, maybe that's something I've already set the system and I want to bring a part-timer in there.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm going to
or
say that piece, when people ask me all the time, should I hire? I'm like, well, what are you going to have them do? Have you thought it through? Is there a system? Because somebody who shows up, the most of the time, they don't just come in and take the bull by the horns and create their own system. Most people want to know to have a job description and such. And so when you're looking at if you need someone to follow your system, then maybe you do need a person that is sitting right there that you have control over, and that you can say, no, I want it this way, and they have to obey and not challenge you on. So versus in this other place where if you want a partner, it's like, okay, I want someone who has expertise that I don't, and let's go in and let's say, all right, tell me, you can still challenge it, because that's what I believe a partnership should be. Challenge my opinion on this and give me the chance to convince you that, okay, I've got a little bit more expertise here, and let me show you these additional consequences. And then you can work together towards what comes next.
I was just making a note about, okay, if we're thinking about the employee versus the partner route, if I'm going to lead the conversation as the business owner and I've got the processes and I have it all lined out, If the structure is there to support the person, that might make a lot of sense. But if I want someone to operate at my level, to consult with, to discuss, to challenge my thinking, that might lend itself better to a fractional. Am I getting that right?
Yes, absolutely. The other part about it is you and I both know how expensive it is to hire. Of what it takes emotionally and monetarily and all of that, and the risk that goes into that as well. And so, oftentimes, if there isn't something already a system in place, or if you're like, I'm expanding into a new area, I heard one person say it took 3 people before they were like, oh, I thought this is what I wanted to do, but then I realized it's not. Well, it's like, wait a minute, you didn't hire me for that. And it was that third person. And so systems is one of the last things that happens in an entrepreneurial business. It really is, because there isn't a need for it yet. And so this gives you a chance to establish, what are my systems? And if you get a partner that is really good, and for us in the CFO space, for finances or accounting, there's a system that goes into play. We build that out, and we do that for everyone. I mean, bookkeeping is like laundry. It is the same thing every month, over and over and over again. And then the strategy piece of it is taking that and making it become a tool for you. So you look at that and you can say, hey, I'm going to hire you as my partner in this. And part of this is you're going to give me a written procedure of the things that you do. So as the business owner, I own that. And then if I decide to hire in-house, then I'm like, you've just developed my system for me
Yes.
so that I
So
could
sometimes
hire.
it can be a good kickstart to
It
get us
is.
started down that path. And then
It
we
is.
really ultimately have the opportunity to choose over time. Is this the path I want to stay on? And was this partner a stopgap?
Right.
Or was this a long-term strategy?
Right. I'm going to say the other piece is that when we look at whether we hire internally, cost is the number one part there. But it isn't just the, can I afford this month over month? How long does it take for that person to get up to speed? What are the other factors that play into the actual cost of it? And it's just, as far as if you lose them, and the turnover and everything else, and the all of that that goes into just the people part of it, that if you get the right person, it's amazing, and you can't imagine it not being there. But sometimes you're not ready to jump, or you've got to realize that I need to realize that 6 months, my first 6 months, it's going to cost me twice as much as what I think it is, because it's going to take time from me as the owner to direct and to establish it, and to train or to advance or whatever else it might be. So the cost piece is a major factor, and you can oftentimes outsource, meaning I'm going to find an expert who can give me a fraction of their time before I get to that place and just test these waters, and then get something in place if I decide that I want that full-time person, so, or part-time person, even a person sitting in the office.
The other thing I've seen, and whether it's employee benefits, HR, IT, marketing, accounting, and bookkeeping and finance, what I often see is that organizations that are looking for these partners, they're not big enough to have all of this knowledge internally. And if they do, they have one person whose knowledge is limited to that one person's experience. And when they bring in these teams, all of a sudden they've got 7 IT people for the price of effectively one, usually. Or they've got this accounting team that's got all this knowledge where they're always learning because it's their craft. And it's funny, on our family farm, I always tell my parents, like, the minute they hand over the reins, I'm going to take our 40-person payroll and I'm going to outsource every piece of it, because for our office manager to be the one, and this happens for so many small businesses, the office manager manages the IT, the HR, the payroll, all of it. And they can't possibly keep up with the amount of change that's happening in terms of regulations and rules to do it well. So they're putting us at risk as employers. That
Yes.
part always scares me. And they can't possibly absorb enough knowledge because they're generalists, not specialists by nature.
Mhm.
And so that's always a consideration, I think.
Yes. And we do live in times where things are changing so quickly, and the regulations, especially being in California, I can't believe what I have to keep up on. So I outsource that piece. I'm like, you educate me on what I need to be up to date on so that I know these things and I don't have to do my own, because the consequence of missing something that's a regulation or change is huge. The penalties can be horrible, especially when we're dealing with people or financial things. So sales tax is another one of those where it's like, has many counties and cities and all of that. And so oftentimes just having somebody else handle the payment of your sales tax is huge because you don't have to keep up on all of that. So,
You know it's done right. And then there's the other one in the finance space that doesn't usually happen in IT or marketing or HR, and that's the embezzlement. And the number of, I have no stats on this, maybe you
I
do,
don't
but
either.
it seems like the small businesses and the embezzlement from people that they trusted
Yeah.
wholeheartedly, where, I had one where the business owner was on vacation, came back and something wasn't right with the books, and they started digging in and found out that the office manager who was writing all the checks was forging one of the signers' names, writing them over here, collecting the money for herself. And that hurt, but also the financial pain that comes along with it. The the difference between outsourcing that, where this is what we do, we're professionals who work with money, versus the temptation that I know this person and their lifestyle and they can afford to
Yeah.
have
That's
slough
a
off the top a little bit. I don't know. Have you had any clients come to you because of the embezzlement situation?
You know, um, personally, we haven't had it come to us because of that, but it has been a reason why they have always outsourced their accounting work, is because they know that that piece isn't going to be there. I am going to say that we have identified embezzlement more than once because we're the ones in the book and we're like, this doesn't add up. And we ask them to investigate on it because the numbers mean something different to us when we're looking at it. And it's like, this just isn't quite right. And so then we bring it to their attention. The business owner looks into it and they've found, I mean, we've caught it. So,
Yeah.
and especially when we see changes, we know that the variances should not be a certain amount. And so we can see that and then bring it to their attention. I'm going to say that, the other thing is that we've seen in our society that people value the time off or the work-life balance so much more. And so as a business owner, then you have to factor in vacations and holidays and all those other pieces of having a work-life balance. When you choose to outsource or have someone come in on a fractional basis, it's spelled out. It's like, this is the task that needs to get done. And you typically pay for that task to get done, and the vacations don't come into play. And the work-life balance is such that the person on the other side that's not a factor you have to decide on as well. And for what we do of keeping our people happy, that's hard. That's a hard place. And those that are able to conquer it are great. But most of the time as an entrepreneur, we're like, work-life balance, this is my life. I love this, but that's not so much so with an employee.
And even as you say that, one of the things I think about is if we're not brand new in the business and we've gotten past the first hurdles where it's
Yeah.
not us doing everything, we start to look around and value our own work-life balance and time we know we should be spending with our kids, our spouses, our our other loved ones, our physical well-being. And if all we're doing is continually finding and training people and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and checking their systems, it can be such a burnout factor for an entrepreneur because they know they should, again, be doing all these things, but at what cost to them? And so that's one of the reasons I see a lot of fractional work happening is to say, I need confidence that this is going to be right. I don't want to hire, train, onboard, and manage a person. I want someone at my level who's has a little forest for the trees distance and they aren't maybe so emotionally committed to it, and they can make some really good recommendations where my employees, there's a power dynamic. And I always ask my integrator, how's my admin doing, because I know full well she may or may not feel super comfortable bringing things up to me. But I'm always asking team members how the other ones are doing because I want to hear it, and I know it may not always come directly to me. So there's a
Yeah.
there's a piece I don't know, a personal well-being for us as leaders of how much can we really take on?
Very good point. And for those entrepreneurs that are their business is able to operate without them, I think that is a goal that every entrepreneur should have. That you should be able to take off 4 weeks and your business could still function without you. And not that you're replaceable because you aren't, but it should be able to continue on in for an extended period of time. Then you know that your business is sound and is able to be sustainable through other time periods as well. So, and
That is a
oftentimes that is with the when you've got you can leave and we say a 4 week vacation because it's like who does that? Not very many people, right?
right.
But you know what times it comes into play is when your daughter has twins and they're in the NICU. Then I take off for 4 weeks. And it's like, yes, I could check in and just say and see where things were, but the business continued. And I was only taking care of those highly critical things. I've got another client that her brother was had terminal cancer and he was going downhill very quickly. And she just walked away and just said, whatever needs to happen happens there. So you look at that and you've got to have systems in place. And sometimes that off at that outsourced piece allows the systems to continue as well because they are feeding like that's part of your internal systems to say and make sure you get it from them and then fill in the next steps.
I often hear entrepreneurs say, well, if I give away all these pieces, what am I supposed to be doing? And that's a really valuable question. Where can you add the most value to the business? I promise it's not through your accounting systems.
No, it's
It's
not.
not, maybe in marketing, but that's probably more through speaking engagements and interacting with your existing clients and asking for referrals, those interpersonal touches that no one else can do. But so many of the pieces don't need your full-time touch. They need
Yeah.
your influence more than they need
That's
your
a
constant attention.
influence. I'm going to say your influence and your vision, that
Yeah.
is where, if that can be the end game for every entrepreneur of like, I'm going to bring inspiration and vision and influence and let my company be able to run the day to day in and out part by itself. So, but I'm going to say that sometimes they're not at that place until they bring in somebody on a fractional level. And why did fractional come out about? And anyway, it's when you look at some of these very specialized areas like a fractional chief financial officer or chief marketing officer, they have a C, they have a C in front of them. And that means that it's going to be 6 digits to hire somebody full time. Well, that's overhead for you. It's your leadership team. And at some point, you do want that. You want someone there 20, the 7 day, not 7 days a week, 40 hours a week. Let's just be realistically with that. But they really are viewing it as I am part of the C-suite and I am an owner with alongside you or treating it like this is my business. But if you find someone that you can have for a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost, you find someone good, they do treat your business as if it's their own. They do show up like that you're walking hand in hand together and they are thinking outside just the time that you have that time together and they're thinking, "Oh, I thought about that. I need to share that with you." And really that fractional piece is that person who is constantly thinking about you, but it is, you're getting the benefit of that without having to pay for somebody to physically be there for that time and where you hold them accountable because they don't get to truly make all the decisions when you're fractional and it's outsourced. You still have that, but you can hold somebody accountable as well. And what are they accountable for? Well, you're going to fire them and find somebody else. And it's a lot easier to fire someone who's not on payroll, as we know as well. Not that, but that it is something I think that we all should think about is that if that doesn't work out well and you've set that expectations and that accountability, that the good ones are going to be able to measure up to that. And if they don't, then it's like, all right, I need to find somebody else who's going to be that fractional person for me.
Let's go that path a little bit because I think that's actually an issue from a you've got people problems perspective.
Sure.
Accountability is an issue with our teams and with fractional partners. I had to
Sure.
terminate a fractional partner earlier this year that they kept coming to me with excuses. And
Mm.
we were in one of our team meetings and I said, I don't think I'm getting what we're paying for. Are we all on the same page? And they said, absolutely. I think it's time to terminate. And like you were saying, it was my integrator sent an email and said, hey, we're terminating. This isn't working for us. This is not at all what you promised. So sometimes we're too nice and we want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I think it is easier to terminate. Like, this isn't a person I've trained and invested in, and I know about their
Yes.
kids. And,
Yes.
um, but we need to do the same thing with our team members. We need to set clear expectations, which is usually pretty easy with a fractional because they bring you the expectations.
That's
They say,
exactly right.
here's what I'm going to deliver, and you can go back through the contract and see how we're doing. It's the flip side with an employee who we say, here's what you're going to deliver, and I will trade you days for dollars. Um, but we, as leaders, often don't do a good job holding people to either side of that contract. What have you seen that works well with team members and with partners that you're working with that in that space?
So that accountability piece, I think, is really key because when you are a business owner and you are bringing in a trusted partner or fractional person or outsource, what we're going to say there is that to establish what those expectations are and then to go back to them, they have something to lose too. And an employee does as well, but there is a lot of like, oh, please, please, please let me just try, or putting them on a performance plan or whatever else. It takes more energy out of you than just saying, this is what I expect. And if you keep on canceling these meetings, or I'm not getting this information that I need, or you're not fulfilling your part of it, then it's easy to just cut it off right there as well. And most of the time when you've got someone, there should be at your level. There isn't, like we've talked about before, where you're the boss and they're underneath. I mean, in all honesty, they are, but when somebody comes in, they truly are at your level. You are speaking like two executives talking hand and working hand in hand with each other and saying, all right, I don't like the way this is going. And they have a chance to say, you're right, this isn't the best fit for whatever. And most of the time that it's either a value violation that causes the fractional piece to happen, where it's like, wait, our values are not aligned. And when you find someone that the values are aligned, boy, you really can go far. But the other piece is that personality part. So if you are looking for someone who truly is, where you're like, I want to hand this off, and if you don't finish it out, then I don't need one more job to do. And a lot of times that's what happens in a fractional position. If you say, I'm bringing you on because I don't want one more thing to do. So if you can't take that piece from me and really follow through and make sure that I can check off that task there because you are an extension of me with your expertise, then oftentimes that's where it's like in your case, where like, I'm not getting what I need here because I don't need another thing to do. So you are a fractional it a fractional person allows you to clone yourself in the area that is not your strength. And it allows you then to do just so much more greater because you can come in, and most of ours are strategy sessions that are an hour, at the most an hour a week. So we can accomplish what is in an hour a week of what somebody might take 4 hours a week if they did it themselves. Because that fractional person, in my case with the CFO, I'm coming with the numbers already prepared. I've already analyzed them. I can see it. It's like, let's fill in the blanks here, and this is where I think we should go. And in that time, in that quick time period, the business owner can say, oh, I forgot to tell you this piece. I'm like, well, great. That changes all of this. Well, when you've got the expert there, that one piece of information, boy, I can process that in split second because that's what I do day in and day out. Okay, well, with that consideration, boom, 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 you still got it accomplished in an hour. Or if I can't, I'm like, okay, give that to me. I'll have it back to you by the end of the business day or whatever else it is. So you've cloned yourself in essence. And typically, if you clone the area that you're not the best in or that you don't enjoy, that re-energizes you too. because you're like, oh my gosh, I got exactly what I needed. I needed that end result or that piece, but I didn't have to exhaust myself going through what it takes to get it.
It's interesting you mentioned that split second reaction. I, it seems like I think I'm remembering back to finishing my master's in business at Texas A&M. And the program director, I was talking to her, I really wanted to go to work for Gallup Consulting. Like the Gallup polls has this talent optimization element
Yeah.
of their business. And I wanted to go to this part of the business. And one of the things she said to me that really resonated with me, she said, the coolest thing about going into consulting of any type is that the iterations you get and the different variety of experiences you get means you ramp up so much faster because you've seen so many things from different perspectives and different clients with different values and different situations, different industries, that all of a sudden you can bring to your clients visibility into what's normal, what's
Yes.
abnormal, what's absolutely worth acting on. Whereas somebody who's in that seat full time or part time has a much more limited window of exposure. And so I think that's one of the reasons that the value of what outside partners can bring is you're not alone. This is
No.
okay, or this is absolutely not okay. Hard stop.
Sure. You look at it when we're hiring someone, we're basing that same thing off of their resume. What outside experience have they had that they're going to come in and be able to contribute to my organization? When you outsource it, then you've got maybe years of and a whole bunch of different contributors to it as well. So look at the things that are outsourced. You've got the IT, you've got the marketing, you've got the financial end of it. Those are the top three right there. And it's not just when I come to the table as a fractional CFO, it's not just me, it's my entire team that has, whether or not I am giving any advisory services, I still see reports and I still hear what's happening, and we're still maneuvering in these things to help our clients. Or like I said, I didn't find the embezzlement thing. One of my team members did. Of course, it came to my attention because I had to get involved to have that conversation. That's a very uncomfortable thing for a bookkeeper to have that conversation with the owner. So they brought me in on that. But again, yes, I saw it. I didn't personally see it. I saw it because my team that's behind me and running that part of the business. So I'm going to say that, when I look at that, oftentimes the people that are sitting in these fractional positions have run a business themselves, or they've got a whole team behind them and they really add a lot of value. The other part about it is that when you get to a certain place in your business, you may want someone who is an industry specialist. So I need an industry specialist in marketing that deals with family farms, or an industry marketing specialist who deals with e-commerce, because you've got still in the fractional area, you've got generalists and then you've got specialists as well. So depending upon what you need at the time, I mean, we all want the specialist, but they come with a specialist cost. But you can start there with all right, I need a fractional CFO. It doesn't matter. Numbers are numbers. They'll get me so far. And I'm going to say that there are some times where I'm like, you know what? You need someone who knows this business. And I am a generalist for businesses, and therefore part of the reason why I don't take certain clients, because I'm like, no, you really need someone who knows that so much better. And that's who's going to get you across that next hump. I am going to say that most of the time you outsource because you come up with a problem that no one else has been able to solve. You're faced with something and you're like, all right, it's time to bring in someone because I cannot figure this out. And I just need someone to come in and have my eyes open to it. A lot of the times we get hired for that reason right there.
So give me a couple of for instances
Yep.
in the financial space. What are some of the problems clients aren't able to solve if they're like, I'm throwing my hands up, I need someone to take care of this for me?
Absolutely. So cash flow is the number one thing. It's like we always had positive cash flow. What's ended up happening? I'm really feeling it. And a lot of it goes back to emotion. Holy cow, I do not like the way this stress is. It's time to bring someone in. Well, isn't that interesting that cash flow and then you're paying for someone to come in, but it's the same. The piece of cash flow is the owner feels it, the emotion of it. We saw this a lot for COVID the supply chain crises, whatever else. We really, in the business field for the past 5 years, every single year has brought us something really like just whiplash as far as how it's hit us. So the need to have someone who has experienced it or has that expertise, that would be another example. So sometimes it's the growth that comes from a company, or what we saw opposite that was COVID growth was amazing. And then COVID went away. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, can I ever get back to that place? Where am I now? I need someone to come in with fresh eyes. I need someone to come in with fresh eyes on this and take a look at this and help me identify it. So all of those might be reasons for that.
Great. Well, it sounds like if whether I'm thinking about a person or a partner as a business owner, I should be thinking about my wish list, how important that specialization is, whether I'm looking for a person to hire full or part-time or a partner to bring on, and then start looking at options. And that can be a time-consuming process. And it's a worthwhile effort because if I am keeping all these things on my plate, what is the business not getting from me because I'm so burdened with the
And I'm
tasks?
and I'm going to say, when you look at your wish list, look at what is cause exerts what sucks the most energy out of you. And we all have it. We all have it. And then start there because usually what happens, I'm going to say for me, that tenacity piece, man, I was so good at the sales calls or whatever, but then my team needed me to type it all up and put it in there. You know what? I hated that. I hired a VA, scanned all my notes. I said, you type this up and put it in there. Not only did it take that off of me, I felt like I had 10 times as much time because it just was such an energy suck. And the fact I couldn't believe the boost that it gave me. So start there of like, how am I going to like just give myself some new life? And then start looking and say, all right, what are some other areas where I'm like, my experience or my knowledge only goes thus far? Let me bring in somebody else. The best part about a fractional person is that you can say, you're going to get me this far, and that's all I needed. Thank you so much. Now you can go back and go on your way. And I know I can come back to you if I ever need you, but our contract's going to end right now. Yeah.
Yep.
So, and that could be the thing of what do we do all the time? We bring in someone to build our own website. We don't, I mean, all of us, guess what? You could build your own website. You could, but you usually hire someone and the project's done. So you can bring in a fractional person for a project base as well. And then just,
Absolutely. I just did it for e-learning modules. We revised all of our employee engagement e-learning modules. It was a project. There was a beginning and an end. There wasn't this, back to dues and subscriptions, start where we end. It doesn't
sure.
have to be a forever thing. It can be, I need to get my books in order. Will you help me redo my chart of accounts and get more visibility? And then I have a person who you can train. Or there's so many creative ways, but I know we're kind of coming to the end. I've got a couple tips and tricks, but I think something tells me you're going to have a couple more as we go through these. So I was taking notes about if we're thinking about a person sitting in the seat, we have to be ready to lead, right? We have to lead with systems, processes, expectations, and accountability
Yeah.
versus bringing in a partner, a fractional, somebody to guide us, help us develop the systems that could be handed over later if we wanted. Give us those outside eyes and really challenge our thinking that in a way we very, very rarely will get with an employee. And then the third major tip I just have in here is no matter which way you go, the accountability is key. Accountability for performance, for values and attitude alignment. If those things aren't being met, we have to do the hard work, even though it's the added dread and energy drain of, oh gosh, will this land back in my lap if I do performance manage this person potentially out of my life, out of my business.
Yeah.
But
The best part about that when you are, I mean, when it's employee, those consequences there, and living in California, letting an employee go, there's a lot of consequences for that just open up. I mean, that's a topic for another day of where that can land. In the case of most time when you've outsourced it, it's done. It's not fun to hold somebody accountable who has missed the mark, regardless of who it is. And I always say, if it gets easy for me to reprimand someone, then I've lost a touch of my humanity, right? Because it shouldn't be easy, but it should be fair. And saying, okay, this really isn't working. We need to go our separate ways. So usually that's the end of it. There isn't a lot of drama most of the time, which is kind of nice. And a lot of the times they see it coming too. Like they don't want to lose the revenue that you're giving them for that, but they also realize this isn't the best fit. And my experience has been on the ones that we have gone into partnership with has been like, this really isn't working, is it? And it's like, yeah, it's not, because it feels it
I
the
had
both
maybe
way.
2 years ago, I had hired a partner and the team was saying regularly, this isn't working for us. This isn't working for us. And so we had an upcoming meeting and I said, okay, it's probably time to terminate this relationship. And it was so interesting because the main point of contact on their side during the conversation where we had planned it said, you know, it's not working for us. And it was like, yeah, no,
Yeah,
I have this theory that nobody wants to suck at work. And that applies for a person
yeah,
and a partner.
yeah,
Nobody wants this rub because it's exhausting. It's
yeah,
back to the energy game. And we have to be, for those of us who are not woo-woo, we have to be really honest about, is this a yay or a yuck? And if it's a yuck, we need to be really thoughtful about what do we do about that? Because continually letting it drain us is affecting us physically, mentally, emotionally, from a performance perspective, and in our relationships. And maybe
yeah.
that's the biggest takeaway in terms of trying to decide.
I am all for that. I mean, we call it the cringe factor for us, of like, where's the
Factor.
cringe factor on this? And when there are minimal cringe factors, I don't even feel like I work. It is so enjoyable. And at every level, everybody in your company, if you get to that place, it's like you said, the right seats on the bus for that. But it really, and sometimes it's hey, we brought this person in-house. This is a cringe factor here for me because we're not. Let's try to outsource it. It's a much easier pivot when it's an outsourced person versus bringing someone in. And a lot of it has to do because what's on our shoulders.
Great. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation that spans much farther than just fractional accounting and bookkeeping services. And I'm so glad to spend time with you, Michelle. Thank you. I think this
Yeah.
conversation could be a much bigger one. It'd be fun to have an IT person and a marketing person, and we could all.
It would be because a lot of times you don't even know what they can add. What you can do that? I didn't know because we don't know. They're experts in their field. So yes, I agree very
Great.
much.
Well, if you have an interest in following up, if someone wants to talk with your team, what is the best way to contact you, Michelle?
All right. The best way is to go to our website at someofallnumbers.com. That's going to be the easiest way because there's a way to contact us. Everything is right there. And it also kind of goes through all of like what you could get from us. And we've learned really quickly, it's like we put this is what you can expect to receive from us so that it's very clear. And I figured if I put it on my website and in my contract, you're going to get it because you can hold me accountable. So.
Great. Well, if you'd like to learn more from me about getting the right people in the right seats or making sure that your team is engaged and operating at a high level, probably our website as well, activatehcg.com. And I hope you tune into a future episode of You Got People Problems. Thanks for your time, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of You've Got People Problems. If you got something out of the conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with the other leaders in your network because let's face it, we all have people problems. You can watch full episodes on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast app. But either way, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.